Our chalice this morning will be lit by Abraham Figueroa. Abraham is a member of our church and a volunteer in our RE program, and I'm pleased to let you know that he has been awarded the Governor's Disability Employment Award of Excellence. He will be honored at a reception at the Governor's Mansion on October 26th. We light our chalice in Midtown, Oklahoma City, on land that was home to first Americans, including the Apache, Caddo, and Wichita, on land that was taken from the Muskogee and Seminole and other removed and relocated peoples. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, the flame of hope. Thank you, Abraham, and congratulations again. Again, welcome. I am Reverend Diana Davies. My pronouns are she, her. And for those in our community who are blind or visually impaired or joining us online without video, I'm a white woman in my 50s wearing a clerical robe. I have some sad news, even as we celebrate some happy news this morning. We have some sad news that one of our dear, dear members of the congregation will be moving away, and this is their final service with us today. Kate Rotler will be moving to Albuquerque. Kate, we have loved having you as a member of our congregation, our radical welcoming team, our choir. You have brought so much with your beautiful voice and beautiful presence. We will miss you, and we look forward to seeing you when you're in Oklahoma City.
I miss you guys too.
Kate. At this time of year, we say goodbye to the heat of summer, and we turn to a time of reflection and introspection and closer communion with those who have lived and passed on before us. And we pause in this sacred space and time to be together, to honor our commitments to one another, to rest in the embrace of community, even as we remember that the work of building and strengthening community never ends. Today, we look back to times long past for lessons on how to live and how not to live. We consider the future and what our community may become. And whatever may be, we take a deep breath, we enter into this time, and recognize that right now, right here, we are together. And that is good. Our opening hymn is number 1 in the gray hymnal, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
comes into a shrine.
Good morning. I'm a woman in her 70s wearing a orange shirt and black slacks. And I have the joy of sharing Time for All Ages with you this morning. And in your bulletin, you'll see the name of the story is The Little Old Lady Who Wasn't Afraid of Anything. So it starts out. Once upon a time, oh, and I could use some help, you'll see. Once upon a time, there was a little old lady who was not afraid of anything. One windy afternoon, the little old lady left her cottage and went for a walk in the forest. She walked so long and so far that it began to get dark. There was only a sliver of moonlight coming through the winter-fall sky to guide her on her way home. She stopped, she went along her path on her way home, and then she just stopped suddenly. There were two big shoes right in the path, and they went clump, clump. Out of my way, you two big shoes. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady, and she started going down the path again. But behind her, what did she hear? Two big shoes going clomp, clomp. She walked a little further down the path, and this time she stumbled upon a pair of pants. The pair of pants went wiggle, 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 wiggle. Out of my way, you silly pair of pants. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady. And she went on her way, but behind her, she heard stomp, stomp, wiggle, wiggle, as she went. Well, she keeps going along the path home, and then she bumps into a shirt. And the shirt goes, shake, shake. Out of my way, old shirt. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady. And on she went. But behind her, she could hear clomp, clomp, wiggle, wiggle, shake, shake. All right. So, a little ways further, she comes upon two white gloves and a tall black top hat. And what are they doing? They're going clap, clap, nod, nod. Out of my way, said the little old lady. I'm not afraid of you. But this time she walks a little faster down the path. And behind her she hears clomp, clomp, wiggle, wiggle, shake, shake, nod, nod, nod. Okay, so by now she's really walking quickly to get home. And what does she come upon? A big, very orange, very scary looking pumpkin head that goes, out of my way, pumpkin. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady. And so she goes quickly down the path, and behind her, of course, is clomp, clomp, wiggle, wiggle, shake, shake, clap, clap, nod, nod, boo. Okay. So she gets home and she goes in her cozy cottage and she closes the door. and it is so nice and quiet. But then there is a knock, knock on the door. She opens the door, and what does she see? 2 pairs of shoes, clomp, clomp, a pair of pants, wiggle, wiggle, a shirt, shake, shake, 2 white gloves, clap, clap, a hat, nod, nod, and a pumpkin going, boo. Well, she says, I'm not afraid of you. Oh, the pumpkin looks so sad and crestfallen. What is to become of us now? The little old lady thought for a minute, and then she leans over to the pumpkin and she whispers in the pumpkin's ear. The pumpkin head seems to brighten up a little bit. Well, the little old lady goes to bed, sleeps well, and in the morning she looks out of her window. And what do you think she saw in her garden? Yes, a scarecrow, of course. And what did the scarecrow do? It went clump, clump, wiggle, wiggle, shake, shake, clap, clap, nod, nod, boo. And it chased all the crows away. The end.
Uh-oh. Well, it got caught. Every Sunday, we take an offering since 2002. All the cash and designated checks from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work, our Change for Change partners. Because October is 2S LGBTQ+ History Month, our Change for Change partner is the University of Central Oklahoma's Women's Research Center and BGLTQ Student Center. Their collaborative mission is to engage and advance women in the bisexual, gay, lesbian, trans, queer plus community at the University of Oklahoma, the greater Oklahoma City metropolitan region, and beyond. For those of you who are in the sanctuary with us today, in just a moment we'll be passing the offering plate. If you're not able to make a gift today, we invite you to write a note of encouragement to our Change for Change partner organization, and we'll share those messages with them as well. And if you're watching us online, please make your gift by sending a check to First Unitarian. Just write Change for Change on the memo line, or make an online payment through our website, 1UC.org.
please join me in singing the children out to their classes?
Conspiracy theories, in my opinion, are much like a cancer. They begin with one small, twisted piece of information, like a cell that becomes malignant. And that one piece of information develops into a story, like a tumor. And before long, that story metastasizes throughout a nation until it becomes a disease. Conspiracy theories can destroy reputations, careers, and lives. The first time I became up close and personal with a conspiracy theory was when a friend of mine showed me a videotape about 9/11. He and his wife are college educated, liberal-minded in their thinking, and when I realized the reasonable sounding male voice over the television was really talking about a conspiracy concerning the Twin Towers, I looked at him and I said, "Are you kidding? Do you really believe this?" And his answer to me almost made me fall off my chair. He said, "Well, I think it's possible." Okay, anything is possible. I understand that. And as much as I didn't like President Bush, I don't think he arranged for terrorists to fly planes into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon just to get back at someone to avenge his daddy's reputation. But that was the conspiracy theory. During the summer of 2020, when Oklahoma City had Black Lives Matter demonstrations and marches over the killing of so many black people by police, my brother told me about a post my next-door neighbor made on our neighborhood Facebook group. The post revealed her concerns that protesters were coming to our neighborhood, which is in far northwest Edmond, a mile shy of Logan County, to do property damage and to take over our properties in total. That was what they were coming for. That was what was posted. Another neighbor posted immediately after that no one would get past his driveways because Mr. Heckler and Koch and Mr. Smith and Wesson lived there. That neighbor proudly flies the U.S. flag, and beneath that is the QAnon flag. You see, it's a head-scratcher to me how intelligent human beings become swept up in theories about people who may look differently, act differently, worship differently, and celebrate holidays differently. It angers me when groups of people who are standing up for equity and fairness are labeled by others as trying to replace them or confiscate what they have. Are we that afraid of each other? Because to hate something that much, to hate a group of people that much, I think that hate has to come from fear. How else could reasonable people succumb to believing wild conspiracies about people and events? Right now, we're facing a true existential threat to our democracy. Certain voting rights, the right of self-determination and physical autonomy, have been seriously eroded. Some candidates are already announcing that they will accept the results of the election as long as they win. Unprecedented, and I hate that word now, but it is, unprecedented attacks in states around the country, specifically aimed at our LGBTQ+ siblings, based on conspiracy theories, only on conspiracy theories, are taking root and causing what very well could be irreparable harm. Already we have laws prohibiting teachers from teaching students on topics related to sex or sexuality, critical race theory, and more. When my grandson when it was in Florida, I was on the phone with him and I told him, God, for whatever you do, don't say gay in that state. Whatever you do not say the word gay, because you might get arrested. What kind of fear and hate drives people to believe such conspiracies, taking them down a rabbit hole of such proportion that they feel compelled to act on such fiction? Such actions like what we witnessed January 6, 2021, shocked a nation, but it galvanized those who believe a radical and dangerous lie. I take heart knowing that this isn't the first time our country has had to face treachery coupled with conspiracy theories. Senator McCarthy will always be remembered for his debacle over communists everywhere. Thankfully, sensible heads and the truth prevailed. I just hope reasonable people will step up now and voice the truth every time they hear hints of conspiracy theories. It reminds me again how important my vote is. Thank you.
Would you please join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation? Spirit of life, source of love. This is the time of year when we turn inward, the time of year when we practice hospitality and seek for light in the darkness. Our Jewish siblings have finished celebrating Sukkot, the festival of tents and shelters. Our Jain and Sikh and Hindu siblings are now celebrating Diwali. Pagan members of our family are preparing for Samhain, and we all welcome the turning of the wheel and the turning of the seasons. As this inward turning time, may we also reach outward to all those in need of shelter, all those in need of hospitality, all those in need of light, of hope, of a second chance. May we hold in our care all those within our community who are celebrating and who are mourning. May we hold in our care all of those outside of our immediate community who are afraid, who need love and courage and encouragement. As we turn within, may we find within ourselves the source of courage and light. May we hold fast to that. May we hold fast to the power of community, knowing that we are always held in love. And at this time, I invite you in silence to lift upon your hearts the names of those people, those places, especially in need of care at this time. May it be so. Amen. It's been a while since I've given a history-based sermon like this one, so if this particular subject matter is of any special interest to you, please let me know, and I am happy to send you my list of references and resources. I went down a little bit of a research rabbit hole on this one, so it's kind of a long list. Imagine this situation. You have come to church one fine Sunday morning like this one, and the minister has just stepped into the pulpit to preach. And right around that time, you realize that there's something you forgot. So you get up and you start to go out the door as quietly as you can, but just as you go out that door, a big gust of wind comes along and slams the door behind you. Everyone looks up. Everyone is staring at you. And there is a pregnant pause. Some days later, there is a knock on your door, and local officials are there to arrest you. Key leaders of the church, with the support of the minister, have filed a formal complaint accusing you of witchcraft. Now, something like this actually happened to Sarah Cloyce in 1692 in Salem Village, in what is now the state of Massachusetts. Sarah would survive the infamous witch trials, but both of her sisters, Rebecca Nurse and Mary Eastie, would be executed, hanged on Gallows Hill, accused of being witches by fellow members of their community, by fellow members of their own church. Now, Salem Village is today called Danvers, and about 5 miles to the southeast of Danvers is Salem, once known as Salem Town. And there today, nestled amongst tourist attractions and small museums and stores selling crystals and tarot cards and scented soy candles, stands the very stately First Unitarian Universalist Church. And 3 years ago, I had the honor of attending the ordination of a friend from theological school after she was called to be the first woman to lead that church as its minister in its 390-year history. And I'll tell you, as historical as our beautiful building may be, as rich as our 129-year history may be, the history of First Church Salem is of a different quality, different feel and weight. First Unitarian Universalist Church in Salem, Massachusetts is one of the oldest continually operating churches in North America. And it was one of the first churches on the continent to practice a form of governance called congregational polity. What is congregational polity, you ask? Well, it's a form of church governance in which each individual congregation is fully its own church, not beholden to a central authority like a pope or a bishop or a presbytery. Each congregation calls its own clergy leaders and determines who can become a member. Unitarian Universalists, like our cousin faith, United Church of Christ, along with Baptist and a few other denominations, are congregationalist in our polity. And this system of governance comes directly out of our heritage in this country in the Reformed Protestant Puritans. Now, the Puritans weren't separatists like the Pilgrims, and they didn't come to the, quote, New World in the 17th century in search of religious freedom, so much as is in hopes that they could do things better in a purer way than the Church of England. Now, all the same, the only way they could show the world the so-called right way to do things was by doing it themselves. So local independence from central religious authorities was an important part of their overall vision. And this is one thing we inherited from the Puritans, this element of independence. The idea of congregational polity based in voluntary and self-organizing institutions. But much more importantly, we inherited from them the foundational concept of covenant. Covenant, that thing that is core to our identity as Unitarian Universalists, that idea that what holds us together is not doctrine or dictate, but our commitment to being together, our working out of how we want to be together, our promise to hold one another as we all stumble through life. And it just so happens that it was the members of the First Church of Salem who established the first formal congregational covenant in this new land. That was in 1629. It's known, not surprisingly, as the Salem Covenant. And it remains the covenant of the First UU Church of Salem and is still recited during their worship services to this day. It's very simple, and updated to modern day English, it goes like this, quote, "We covenant with the Lord and with one another, and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways, according as he is pleased to reveal himself unto us and his blessed word of truth." Unquote. We covenant. We bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together. The Puritans of Salem were making a commitment not just to their God, but to each other, to live together in one blessed community. And yet, how quickly it all unraveled. Salem itself became divided, with Salem town growing into a wealthy trading post, while the inland Salem village was much smaller and poorer. Two distinct cultures developed. By 1672, the people of Salem village wanted their own church and their own minister. And years later, they got that minister. His name was Reverend Samuel Parris. Well, unlike the two ministers in the bigger, wealthier Salem town church, who were both Harvard graduates and the sons of ministers, Samuel Parris never graduated. And he came to Salem Village after working in business in the Caribbean. Besides his family, he brought with him two enslaved people named Tituba and John Indian. Now, in his defense, the congregation that called Samuel Parris was what we would call, in today's lingo, developmental. It was rife with conflict. There was conflict about money, which led to several ministers leaving in quick succession because they were never paid. There was conflict about governance, disagreement about who could vote to hire a minister or to elect their equivalent of their board of trustees. And there was a deep class divide as well, made manifest by an ongoing feud between two families, the Putnams and the Porters. The Putnams were more rural and sought autonomy from the larger Salem town, and the Porters were wealthier and closely connected to the families of Salem. Well, sadly, Samuel Parris did nothing to resolve this conflict. If anything, he made it worse by being allied with the Putnam side and making a habit of publicly calling out and humiliating his congregants for the smallest mistakes. In short, The Church of Salem Village was a mess. And this is the background against which the infamous Salem witch trials play out. It was in January of 1692 that Samuel Parris's 9-year-old daughter and 11-year-old niece began having fits. Eventually, a doctor was called who, unable to find any physiological cause for their affliction, said, well, they must be bewitched. The affliction then spread among other young girls in the community, and 3 women were accused of witchcraft. The enslaved woman, Tituba, a poor beggar named Sarah Good, and an elderly woman, Sarah Osborne, who was held in disdain because of her relationship with an indentured servant. So these first 3 to be accused were easy targets. They all existed at the margins of their community. But things soon changed. Tituba, likely out of terror and understanding that if she insisted on her innocence, she would certainly be killed, she confessed to witchcraft and implicated the 2 other women and suggested that there were more whom she couldn't name. And after this, the people of Salem Village felt empowered to accuse not just powerless individuals at the margins of their community, but people at the very center, members of their own congregations, including Martha Covey, a member of Salem Village Church, and Rebecca Nurse, a member of Salem Town Church. Instead of defending their congregants, Reverend Parris at Salem Village Church became one of the most vocal accusers. And at the larger, more ostensibly sophisticated Salem Town Church, the junior minister, Reverend Nicholas Noyes, helped to lead the charge against some of his own people. Both Martha and Rebecca were in their 70s and no longer of childbearing age, making them more expendable in the economy of their time. Both were maybe a little irritating in their own way. Martha apparently was pretty short-tempered and no nonsense. She had no problem saying that those girls throwing fits were just being ridiculous and that the whole thing was a farce. She had no problem standing up to her sometimes overbearing husband and even bickering with him in public. Rebecca, on the other hand, was so upstanding and proper that some folks, including some of the Putnams, surely suspected that she thought she was better than they were. And while 39 members of Rebecca's congregation did stand up for her, ultimately both women were betrayed by their own communities. Both were arrested and tried and sentenced to death. And arrested along with the 2 of them was the 4-year-old daughter of the poor woman, Sarah Good. They were arresting 4-year-olds. As irritating as he might have been, when Martha Corey's husband, Giles, a member in good standing at Salem Town Church, stood up for his wife, he too was accused of witchcraft and arrested. Instead of confessing or declaring his innocence, Giles refused to recognize the system at all. He refused to make a plea. And for this, a man in his 70s, he was stripped naked in a field, placed under a slab, and slowly crushed to death over the course of 2 days as heavy rocks were placed on top of the slab. By February 1693, just a little over a year after the whole thing had started, the witch trials had played out and come to an end. And some scholars think that it only ended when the family members of judges and powerful ministers began to be accused. What had started out in Salem Village and Salem Town had spread throughout the entire area. Over 200 people had been arrested, 19 people 14 of them women, had been hanged. Giles Corey had been crushed to death. And at least 5 people, including 2 infants, had died in prison. The significant majority of the victims were marginalized in some way by gender, age, class, race, status. And for the most part, those victims who did hold a privileged position in the community were punished only because they stood up to the injustice. But as horrible as all this is, what makes it even worse is that mostly the victims were not outsiders. They were not unknown. They were the very same people who sat in church together every week and said the words, "We covenant to bind ourselves in the presence of God, to walk together." Clearly, covenant only means something if it is practiced. Covenant only means something if it encompasses everyone, from the most marginalized in our community to the people at the center. Covenant only means something if it applies to us, to those of us who annoy us, as well as those who might think they're better than everyone else. Covenant only means something if it is resilient enough, expansive enough, curious enough, humble enough, that emotions like fear, envy, or pity can't overwhelm it. Our Puritan ancestors left us this great gift, the gift of congregational polity based in covenant. The idea that we are a church because we choose to travel together in love. We choose to be in relationship, to support one another, and to be accountable to one another. But they also left us another gift, the terrible example of what can happen when covenant falls apart, when it isn't truly based in love and acceptance in the first place. Without an intentional, active insistence on covenant, without a relentless focus on relationship, even the least diverse community can turn on itself. Even a monotone congregation can devolve into Gallows Hill. In 1698, a new minister arrived at Salem Village Church, and he did something remarkable. He rearranged the seating. He rearranged it so that the accusers and those accused of witchcraft were seated next to each other. He put people in opposition into proximity. And healing didn't happen overnight, but it began to happen. That's part of the Salem witch trial story we don't hear very much about. Unitarian Universalists today may not have the hubris of our Puritan ancestors, at least I sure hope we don't. We may not believe that we are on a city, on a hill, a model of the right way to be, but we do offer something important to the world. The gift of covenant, a focus on relationship, the certainty that we are in this together, all of us together. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit for our congregational hymn. It's number 323 in the gray hymnal, "Break Not the Circle."
Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt. But will that human bonds remain unbroken? Join them, the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community which burns in our hearts.
I leave you today with this blessing from Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down, there is another truth. You are not alone. May it be so.